I feel like when I go on the panel show, I don't say a lot. And I don't think that's, like, because I don't have a lot. I think it's just because, like, a lot of the time, like, the other guys just say it all. This happens to me when I do, like, a freeway cast as well. Like, when we do, like, freeway cast at Home Story Cup, if two pros are casting and they don't need much help, like, being pushed into conversation, I just have nothing to add to the stream. Because I just analyze the game at a, a higher level than I can. It's like, well, what do I do now? It's like, in the Pylon show, it's like, a lot of the topics, like, Artosis and In Control know way more about me, so... for me, I'm like sitting there like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, oh, I mean, how am I meant to add to it when I'm literally learning as we go? So, yeah, it's interesting because like a lot of the time you just sat there and I feel like, oh my god, I haven't talked in ages. And I'm like, well, I guess I don't need to talk because these guys don't need me to interrupt their discussion at the moment, right? It's just one of those things though in terms of like what there is to be said. All right, top right hand side, our red Zerg player here is soO. Up against the blue Protoss and the bottom left Creator. So our first matchup today, as we get this underway and rolling, and look to see what's going to be happening. Yeah, it seems like we might be Hurricaneless, which would be really sad because I'm so sick of dealing with player issues. If we have no Hurricane, then we might just have 6 matches in this group instead of 10. Which is a shame, but I just literally don't have a way to... I just do not have a way to fix that right now. Alright, so, setting us up and seeing where this goes here on Bandwidth. A pretty standard map here. I kind of like the games that we've seen on this one, although it does get vetoed quite a bit. It feels like your pretty typical sort of standard map. It reminds me a little bit of Coda rotated in a way. It's like natural and third base, the way you kind of go down then up the ramp and come up the ramp over here to a fourth. And the middle of the map is obviously a little bit intriguing, but you have these other platforms as well. And moving out towards extra bases along here and here. It's actually not impossible to do, but it's also not like they're just sat you're just sat there defending all 4 bases without moving your army, right? So we just see that link speed on the way up here from soO. Hatchery about to finish up on the 3rd base, and the Twilight Council from Creator dropping down in the main. So that Twilight Council just on the way in at the moment, as we see this Overlord of soO pressing out. And it's just been having a little bit of a scatter around, so gets in, sees the fast Twilight Council. soO pretty aware of what's going on here initially then, or at least what the possibilities are. Obviously something like Resonating Blaze, possibly something along the lines of an Archon drop. So 2 different options right there. As you do see, there's Adept up in the main base from Creator, dealing just a little bit of damage to a Zergling. So Adept is harassing around a little bit at the moment, as we're going to be seeing this Adept trying to go after Drone as well, but the Drone builds a Spore, then will cancel. And Creator pulling away through the center of the map now. Dark Shrine gets started, Lair on the way up in the main base. And the Rotron also going to drop down on the natural expansion. So again, getting set up into this, it's pretty regular. In fact, against the Archon drop, this is pretty much exactly what you'd expect to see from soO. The Lair gives you the Overseer to detect against DTs initially. Then you've got the Roaches up as well, so you're going to be able to actually have a sturdy defense to help push those Archons away, rather than kind of Lings and so on. Even if you want to play like a Ling Bane sort of style, Roaches into that is a much safer way of doing it, and I'd say almost essential when Archons are coming up, just because Zerglings trade so badly against Archons with the way they can be kited. The splash damage obviously kills them very quickly, and that's pretty crazy as we do see this Warp Prism popping out and heading up towards the upper right-hand side of the map. So, Warp Prism from Creator heading to the top right and looking to obviously start applying this pressure. So he has some really good splits on these Lings though. No Ling speed by the way, so he was able to speed up the Lair timing in that. Not wasting any time at all with Ling speed here, although that does mean there won't be any Lings to potentially counter-attack a 3rd base, which means that will be a little bit more exposed. And there's 2 Archons starting to morph in. Creator getting ready to just lift those up and bring them into the main base. Didn't even bother to try with the DTs or anything. It's just fine. I don't think that's too much of an issue or anything along those lines. As you see the Archons dropping down. Queen's getting pushed away. And the Queen jumping on the Warp Prism there and is going to be just dealing a little bit of damage. And Creator pulling back down into the center. Couple of queens going to trade off a transfusion. soO just bringing those queens back up to health a little bit. And those Archons dropping off here. A few Overlords, Roaches on the way out. Roach speed about to finish up as well. And they have a few units on the right side. DTs just not finding an access point. Good defense by soO. Has that Overseer in position. And well, soO continuing to build that Roach speed up. He's getting a lot more Overlords, which generally indicates the idea of building a lot more Roaches, more so than anything else. So we're probably going to continue seeing a lot more Roaches here. There's a lot of them continuing to pour out at the moment. And that means he's probably going to go and counterattack a little bit. Now this means the Archons have to come back home. Archons can't really stay on the map because they're two of your major tech units in the early stage of the game. And especially when you have two sets of them on the map, you do not really have anything else at home. The Sentry, a Stalker, the Immortal in production. Creator realizing what's going on. The first two Archons coming back, now the second two. Sometimes you even recall them to get them back home ASAP. soO is still building Roaches, so it's not even just about these first few Roaches. It's about the next set of Roaches as well. He's going to keep on pushing these across the map. He does have a lot of gas as well to even build more Roaches with, or to start morphing in some Ravagers. Morphing a few Ravagers, not too many. We're going to see Archons could potentially drop on top of this here because there isn't that many Roaches in comparison to the fact there's going to be 4 Archons dropping in. And he does have to lift up as a few more reinforcements arrive. Goes straight up towards the third base. I mean, there's only one shield battery here. First corrosive battles coming down on it. As the Ravagers in the front of the army, not where they want to be. The Immortal coming in behind this. There's just a real lack of, like, Zealots or anything to kind of tank for this. And so, all of these shots are going off on the tech-heavy units, the Archons and Immortals. And yes, they're being microed back nicely by the Warp Prisms. So that's about it at the moment. Is going to be seeing these Roaches and Ravagers starting to push on through. Archon on the top side. Oh, it just doesn't quite go down. Does get saved right there into the Warp Prism. So, again, it's nice micro, but at the end of the day, you're still taking so much damage that eventually the third player is starting to push up your natural ramp. You've lost the third base and the probes on it. Remember that soO is on a low worker count, so if you can survive here as Creator, you're still in an okay spot. But there's so many Roaches continuing to rally across the map. The Warp Prism micro is still good, but it's getting to that point where 1 or 2 more hits and these units start to die, and we're actually starting to see it. The Archons and the Immortals are bleeding off here, and there's continued attack across the map. Looking good. There's a couple of Roaches fighting the Nexus. And these Roaches of soO continue to press up here and working their way through this pylon and just starting to unpower things, starting to make their way into the base. Again, with more and more reinforcements streaming across, it's just going to become a bit too much, a bit too quickly, as we're going to be seeing. Well, now even probes pulled into this here as well. A couple more Zealots being walked in. There's way too much. Way too much. So again, soO just the decision of, hey, you know what, I'm going to cut my drone count, build a massive Roaches, and just attack. It's one of those things that, you know, it works very regularly. It's a very commonly seen thing. As soO just picked up game number 1 of this best of. I've contacted him in every way I can. Obviously, if a player says they're going to be here, then they're not. There's only so much we can do. Alright. Top left-hand side, our blue Protoss is Creator here in game number 2. Let's see if he can pick up a point against soO. That's to the bottom right. Our red Zerg player is, of course, soO from Chivo Esports. New team on the WCS, on the StarCraft 2 community. And Deandra, they had a pretty great day yesterday. soO advancing from GSL. I'm sorry, guys. If you're watching a StarCraft stream and you don't want GSL spoilers, I don't know what to tell you. But also in the WCS Americas last night, that player Cham was able to advance as well. So Chivo Esports is a team having a pretty great time. As we do get this set up and going now for the second game of this series. Just gonna see this Overlord heading across to the upper left-hand side. And a little bit of a look to see what's going on as an extractor comes in. Off to the right, good to see the spawning pool dropping down as well. Out in the middle, this Overlord heading towards the top left-hand side of Gateway, going to finish up. And yeah, ready to drop down in Cybercore, right? So, pretty regular here so far. I think this is one of the... This still isn't walled correctly, right? I think you can wall if you wall your Gateway here, and then a Cybercore, and then a third building here. I think you can get a full wall off. This is a bit better than before. Usually we've been seeing people like walling off across here. But I do believe that's a wall-off position that people just haven't quite figured out yet. So they're still working it. Actually, when I run the TLMC and I run like the European version of it, or like we do like a European-based competition, I always have a very difficult time getting Protoss players to play, because all the Protoss players are just like, I don't want to learn how to wall off on new maps, and there's just too many maps to wall off on. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, just, you know, I can't go and learn how to wall off on all these maps. It's like, I mean, that makes sense, right? It is something to take into account that when when new maps come out, you gotta think about where those pylons go as a Protoss player, where you're going to wall off. These guys have generally been pretty good at adapting to the new maps. We haven't seen any really scuffed walls. I think this map's maybe caused some of the most issues. But we've even seen a lot of players walling off kind of Reaper jump-up areas already and stuff like that, so very quick to identify those spots. And I mean, obviously, in a way, it's like, well, you know, I do this on all the other maps. I can see what it looks like here. It's not, you know, rocket science to figure it out, but it is still nice to see, because they're, you know, having a look at the map, figuring a couple of things out. Stalker picking its way through this Overlord. So Overlord taking quite a bit of damage at the moment. Is going to drop here in a moment or so. And the Robo Facility going to drop down the front too. So again, if you imagine that this gateway was just like a hex further this way, then you have the Robo like here. I think you can wall off with 3 buildings and not much else. This is like 3 buildings and a pylon, which is a bit of an interesting wall, as we do see the Oracle heading down to the bottom right side of the map. Twilight Council, Robotics Facility, building up, so obviously it is just looking to be one of those openings with an Archon drop follow-up from the Stargate. Obviously last time we didn't see a Stargate at all, so Creator changes it up a little bit. By going into the Oracle, you apply a little bit of pressure, you get a couple of, force a couple of spore crawlers from some of the drones, for example. Some little bits and pieces like that, as we see some Zerglings running away over to the right-hand side. Templar Archives drops down from the Creator in the back of the Natural. And, well, just seen a lair on the way up in the main base as well, as again that lair rolling. So he's still having a little run around with these Zerglings, trying to see what's going on. Similar response from soO. No real reason to change it up, right? I mean, Roach's lair, he doesn't know what the follow-up is just yet, but you've seen the Robo, and I think that's a pretty good indicator as to the sort of timing of this and what this is probably looking to be. As you have the Warp Prism starting to move down to the bottom right-hand side. What's up, Clock Bash? Thank you so much for the 14-month resub. Ta-ta! Is that meant to be a Ratata? A WardiTV? What's up? Thank you so much for the 14 months. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for supporting. This is some hype in the chat. As you do see Lings just finding this prism early means it's difficult to actually open those High Templar. The Oracle back at home defending the third base. I mean, oftentimes you see the Oracle hanging out with the Warp Prism while you warp the High Templar and morph in the Archons, because it can turn Zerglings away pretty quickly. But having the Oracle already on the third base means that it actually delays any High Templar from warping in here at all. The Warp Prism is actually going to go all the way back home. He warped in 2 High Templar. No, he's actually warped in 3 High Templar in the main/natural. And he's just keeping them over there for the moment. How interesting. A couple of Archons morphing in as we see the Warp Prism going to hang out overhead. Going to lift up a couple of these. So Archon's lifted up, going to start heading across the map as we do see Oracle taking a little bit of damage. So Oracle's taking a little bit of damage here, and again the Zerglings running around at the moment. Overseer from soO heads into the main base, and just having a good little scout around, seeing what's up, seeing what is happening. Avians from Creator just cleaned up a Zergling or so that comes around. A very passive game again from both of them. I mean, even this time the Archon's not doing too much initially because he had to come back home to pick them up. You're going to see a little bit of creep spread cleaned out, of course, which always slows soO down. This time soO's gone way beyond that 46 worker count. He's gone into a high plus 10 as well, so obviously it's playing a little bit differently compared to what we saw in game 1. We'll see if he maybe wants to cut drones kind of at 63 here and go for like more of a 3 base saturation for an attack, and obviously with Hydras involved, it's a little bit of a different attack in general. As Hydras passive doing DPS, what is the Wall Prism doing? Not on top. Wow, not on top of the Archons there, not lifting up that one that was under fire. As those Roaches getting turned away here as well. A few drones went down, but nothing too major. As you are going to be seeing the Oracle, again jumping on those Roaches and starting to deal quite a bit of damage as these Roaches get pushed away down the left-hand side. Robotics Facility, another one dropping into the natural. At this stage of the game, you always want to be at that point where you're producing 2 Immortals at a time. The Immortal count, the Archon count is definitely going to be, you know, a very important feature of making sure this game is successful for you. So building up into that as much as possible will be awesome as we see Roaches and Hydras hanging out in the center. We're still on that 60-ish worker count, so indeed, soO is looking for a larger attack rather than continuing to macro up. As the 4th base from soO on the left-hand side is about to complete, we have some Roaches running up in towards this 3rd base. Oracle comes forwards, and I mean, Hydra's already attacking it down as the Roach is actually going to dive in. They love that taxing Immortal, goes for the High Templar, forces them straight into an Archon. That means that even if Storm comes up here, it isn't ready yet. But when it is ready, it means there's going to be 2 less High Templar Storms available. Now soO is kind of getting surrounded in with his first chunk of units, but then he's got units from the bottom right-hand side coming in as well. So it's becoming a bit of an awkward fight from soO. However, Zealot's charging in from the top, and he will lose that little clump of units that was in the middle of it all. Well, now, obviously, streaming reinforcements across. This is one of the big things we're actually denying the creep spread earlier in the game from Creator. Becomes very important, because having denied that creep spread, suddenly these units cannot reinforce anywhere near as quickly. You know, imagine the creep was all the way out to, like, here, which it could be if he hadn't lost the creep spread on that right side. Well then, again, that attack path really is accelerated. And that's something to keep in mind. You see, Creator's actually maybe looking to counterattack here, just as soO does add on a bunch of drones. He still has Roaches out over here. I don't think soO was expecting this army to be coming out onto the map. He will save 1 Roach as he will counterattack with a lot of Roaches as well. He just contaminated a Robo Facility. This is amazing. He slows down the Immortal production from probably just jump straight on this, and, well, yeah, that's a dead Robo Facility, no doubt. Sees the recall coming in, so he'll back away to the right side where he's going to find himself an Immortal. Shield Battery will not be able to heal that up in time as the rest of the army coming in from the bottom right. Obviously, I feel like so far these Roaches haven't found enough to justify them all going down, but they're still finding some extra damage as they make a lead, make an exit over to the right side of the map. And a lot of them staying alive, so good counterattack by soO. It buys him that time where now back at home he's had a little bit of an extra he's had a little bit of an extra while to build up, to set up, and to kind of go into the next little stages. You see Roaches and Hydras from soO now pressing forwards into the middle of the map. Still very low tech from soO. As he gets Pneumatized Carapace, it'll open up the option of Overlord drops, I believe. So likely to see a few Overlord drops mixed in here as we see Roaches just tagging this Nexus on the upper right hand side. So again, a little bit of damage done there. There's a few Zealots will warp in as well. Roaches just, and the Hydra's just moving around here on the left. These Roaches backing away. A couple of drones going down as Zealots drop into the main base. So a couple of Zealots taking some hits there as Hydras will chase that Prism off. A few more Overlords up the far left-hand side. These Roaches are going to push forwards and actually find themselves an Immortal. That's really awesome, because again, the Immortals are some of the key units here that are very important to keep alive. And again, the more you have, the weaker this Roach Hydra composition becomes. Because you're making Phoenix here, Creator, and I think he's just been afraid of the Spire. Afraid of Mutalisks, but there's not been Mutas at all. The Phoenix can add actually a kind of a good wave of defense against Lurker play as well. Because if Lurkers come out, you can lift up those Lurkers during a fight, and all of a sudden, they're obviously not burrowed any longer, right? Obviously not doing that much now. As Flings, Roaches and Hydras taking down the cannon, pushing through this top side Nexus. You can see a little bit more of the army here in the center. And pressing in, it's a Storm on top of a bunch of units there. Roaches and Hydras going to turn to fight again. The Immortal goes down. It's still chasing here. We're actually going to see the High Templar picked up. More of these Roaches still fighting as well. Immortal's still taking damage. Zealots are going to run down the ramp. Again, Nexus on the top side goes down, so already denying the 4th base at least. It just doesn't feel like soO's army is large enough to really contest here, truly, right? I mean, he's getting cleaned up on the top side, a Storm mode on the bottom side as well. He just has so much army elsewhere, and here comes some of it on the Hydras on the right side. There's the Violet in this Warp Prism. Nelly actually does get the Warp Prism. Stops a lot of the micro potential there. The Storm misses, apart from the Hydra that was lifted up by the Phoenix. Just going to be seeing more of these units gathering on the left side here. So soO, with a lot of Roaches, Lings, Hydras, all gathered together right now. Hydra's going to be able to pick their way through this Nexus. That's going to be cancelled. We do see the Immortal Stalker Zod Force pressing in towards the upper right-hand side. Dropper Lord's going to be unloading in the main base. And we've been seeing these Overlords waiting for an opportunity to attack in for quite a while. And this will be it, apparently. So, into the main, I mean, it's all just about pulling Creator apart, right? Units have to go in multiple different directions. As we do have these Zealots going down. And we're just going to be seeing this Immortal taking some damage, the Archons taking some shots as well. It's a good little bit of damage. You can see the Hydra's pressing through also. So Hydra's pressing forward, is going to be able to see this Phoenix also getting taken down. Another Zealot on the right side getting picked off as well. And again, another couple of Storms dropping as the Hydra's backing away from the natural expansion. It's just at this point now, I think, where soO has just been so relentless. He's gotten to a point where it's... I mean, he's just continuously denying the fourth base and just making sure the Protoss doesn't get a chance to trade that well. It's a little bit worrying because the Hydras are on their own, but it's a large chunk of army moving over, and there's a huge army from soO that's going to hit this top right-hand base here. So we're going to run right in, kill off this Nexus, and do a pretty good job of this. 5 probes down. Yeah, these Dropper Lords continue to run away at the moment. As we see the Immortals pressing in as well. Hatchery taking some damage from the Immortals here. Here we go. Roaches running up the ramp. Hydras as well. Already the cannon going down. Some of these probes are dropping too. There's a Dark Templar down on the ground that's swiping away at a bunch of these Roaches and Hydras. He's actually doing quite a lot of damage. Another Hydra getting picked off. Here, on this side, we see again the Roaches and the Hydra splitting up a little bit. Big attack from Creator then, turning this into a base trade scenario. And he is going to just try and trade out. There's just not a lot of Zealots, right? And he's actually losing a lot of the High Templar already before they can morph into Archons after Storms. soO's actually just sat AFK with this army up here. It's still double the army supply from soO, but he has to make use of this. I'm surprised he doesn't go further forwards with these units. I guess he just doesn't need to. He doesn't want to kill the natural, but if he can hold the free base of his own, then he's free base against 2. That's already a good advantage for him, and that might just be all he's really hoping for here, as he knows he needs everything to clean out such a high-tech army of the Protoss player. And that seems to be what's happening, as we have got the Roaches, the Hydras, continue to set up at the moment. So DT mixed in as well. These other units from across the map actually picked off an Immortal that was wandering over to reinforce. There's a High Templar coming from a similar direction. Oh my god, this base will go down, but only just. That High Templar dies without a Storm. And that's a cleanup in Creator's army. And when you don't have a third base, I would say that this is still pretty good. GG and soO is going to take the 2-0 to start the day.